Well, hello again. I've decided that I wanted to really talk a little bit about relationships. I've spoken about childhood trauma and I've also spoken about unconscious parenting. And I think it follows on really to talk a little bit about adult relationships and how it is that we are how we are when it comes to finding a mate in life, finding a partner in life, an intimate partner, getting married, um, or even just our relationships with friends. There is a difference, though, between the relationship with somebody whom you want to marry and have an intimate relationship with. There is a different set of boundaries and experiences for that. So let me really talk about the intimate relationship and how it is. I'm sure many of you will have noticed that you have the same tendency to repeat the relationships. You seem to be drawn to the same kind of person each time. So, what is it about relationships and how do we get ourselves into them or into dysfunctional ones? And then I suppose the question really is, can we change that? Can we change repeating the same mistakes? Where do they come from? Well, I think you're going to hear many times me telling much the same sort of story, having really been a trauma specialist now for many years and having worked in the field of psychotherapy and developed my own method of working with the subconscious mind. I've paid particular attention to the dysfunctionality and the things that we don't like about ourselves as adults. And to be honest, I haven't found too many of those things that don't come from trauma, that don't come from some unpleasant or compromised situation that we had once upon a time. And it's very much the same with relationships. If you think about it, whatever your first relationship is, your first permanent relationship with your caregiver, be it your mom, maybe granny who looked after you, it may have been a nanny. I've had many clients here recently in the UK who told me that their first stable relationship was with the nanny. What I'm interested in when I ask them is, tell me about that relationship. What was it like? What's your memory? Were you close? Were you cared for? Were your needs understood and responded to? Or were you left alone? Were you isolated? Or were you perhaps abused or beaten or manipulated? Because what I've found is that invariably the patterns of the past get repeated as we grow up. They become unconscious. Just the same as unconscious parenting happens, so does unconscious relating happen. It's very, very difficult to actually change those early drives that we have. So let's say we were in a family like I was, where mother was frozen, she was cut off from me. I actually started to cut off my own feelings, and I wasn't terribly interested in relationships as I was growing up into a beautiful teenager and student at university. I was unconcerned. I was really quite cut off from my feelings. And I've struggled actually over the years. I've had to have a lot of therapy. And of course, now that I've done my own therapy, I've been able to change my brain wiring around the fact that it was preferable for me to be cut off, to be distant. I didn't mind having friendships, but the intimacy bit was always awkward for me. And that's not the case anymore. I have a very normal give and take. So really our prime relationship sets the scene. So if anybody comes and works with me, they'll find I usually say, tell me all about your influences from when you were very young. How was that for you? Because you tend to repeat that pattern. Why do we repeat things? Well, we repeat things when they get wired in the brain. The way the nervous system neurology is constructed, our brains get wired for certain patterns. If you're living in the Amazon jungle as a wild person, having to climb trees and kill with your bare hands, that will be wired into you. That will be natural. If you're living in a high-rise block of flats in the center of New York, and you know how to catch the underground to go to school and so on, and you watch TV all the time, that will be wired into you. So our lifestyle and the things that are important to us for our survival and for our interest get wired, and they get wired very, very young. And once they are wired into us, certain behavior patterns, they're almost impossible to change. And when it comes to relationships, well, I used to be a couples therapist. I was a Gestalt psychotherapist for 25 years. And I specialized in relationship work. And it always saddened me that the couple would come to me week in and week out, and they really didn't change very much. Their relationship didn't get better. There was some understanding and some awareness and some give and take, but basically the behavior that was abhorrent to the other person didn't seem to change. So we're back to the same cause of this. The cause of this is that it's hardwired. And why is it hardwired? Because once upon a time that happened to us, and in order to survive we had to hardwire it and develop a set of defenses to protect ourselves so that we survived. So relationships really, I don't do couples therapy anymore. I invite people to see me one at a time. I definitely think that each person in a faulty relationship needs to go for therapy. But if you can do therapy at the subconscious level of mind, which is what I do, that's the place that you can change the wiring. And when I've seen both parts of a partnership go off and do that very quickly, because it is a quicker therapy, very quickly they're able to come into intimacy and connect again. So I hope it gives you a bit of an interest. I mean, it's a very interesting lecture that one day I'd like to actually give to the general public. Besides giving lectures on childhood trauma and childhood issues, I would love to lecture on relationships and teach about things like boundaries, the ability to say no, the ability to ask for your needs to be met, and so on, and what it means to have autonomy and give and take. You see, these are all aspects of a functional and a happy relationship. And sometimes we've got to learn all of these new skills. We just don't have them. So look forward to maybe seeing you at one of my lectures in the future.